This is a world of spirits and monsters, where people can unleash their soul potential to awaken in themselves various superpowers, such that their new power is enough not only to kill demons, but to destroy everything around them. But no matter what, people who have awakened superpowers in themselves are called heroes. A young boy who got here quite by accident was no exception. Lying in a mountain of garbage, the boy gradually came to his senses, feeling the raindrops crashing down on him. In time, he began to hear voices that appeared to be coming from the television billboards of the apartment buildings. There was a news broadcast in which, with a serious expression on his face, a man was recounting the crazy news of the past day. Focusing on that as confirmation that he was still alive, he listened to the announcer's words. In today's news, a guy driving a car killed a roadside melon vendor. Authorities have intervened to investigate the case. Also today, Grandmaster Ma challenged the Undead King and was defeated by his opponent in one move. In an interview afterwards, Grandmaster Ma claimed that the opposing side did not talk about generic martial arts and attacked in a sneak attack. The incident with the attack on the needle store is investigated. The culprit turned out to be the evil spirit Wu. The accused has already been detained. After hearing some news of a world he didn't understand, the guy with purple hair jumped up from the pile of garbage and shouted at the top of his voice, "This world is crazy." The boy climbed out of the garbage can and began to clean himself up, shaking off the bits and pieces and fixing the hair that covered his eyes. He knew right away that he had entered another world and not just fallen asleep, because his whole body was aching and the smell of garbage was unbearable. This was something his brain wouldn't do. There were a lot of thoughts swarming in the boy's head, but the clearest thought in his head was that the other trapped men were always invincible from the beginning, and he, a handsome boy now in the body of some Lin, whose memories were gradually filling him up. It was at that moment that the boy roared with anger and shouted at the top of his lungs, "If I find out who the killer is, I will definitely kill him." Suddenly footsteps were heard in the alley, and Lin turned around to see who was coming. The moment he turned around, he saw a sad picture of the society of the world. A man with his hair slicked back and his pants pulled down was standing against the wall, preparing to relieve himself right here, in front of Lin, and right now. Lin stepped from foot to foot, whereupon the neck of the man standing in front of him crunched and began to twist violently, owl-like. Standing with his back to the guy, the man twisted his neck in such a way that he looked Lin directly in the eyes. The guy looked at the stranger and was amazed at what was happening right in front of his eyes. With his tongue stuck out to his back and his eyes bulging, the stranger hissed, "Sha, that's the smell of fresh human meat." Lin went pale from what he saw and took a couple of steps and cried out, "Ah, what the fuck is that? Come on, come here. Let this kind man help you check your body." The man muttered, rushing towards Lin, "You're not going anywhere. There's a dead end ahead. No, don't come near me." Lin answered, hunching against the wall, shrinking in fear. The man came close to Lin and opened his mouth, which opened into 4 lobes with sharp and large teeth in 2 rows. A sense of impending doom engulfed the lad, and he could not utter a word. However, with courage and overcoming the fear that had paralyzed him, Lin began to call for help. Suddenly, out of nowhere, huge red scissors that looked more like garden shears for bushes appeared. They flew straight into the neck of the monster that had just tried to bite its head off. They pierced through it like a knife of melted butter, described an arc, and, as if they were boomerangs, returned to the mistress's hands. The stranger began to vanish into thin air, sprinkling the boy lightly with blood, which sent him to the ground. Turning his head, Lin saw a beautiful gray-haired girl nearby with blood-red eyes as her dress and an umbrella in one hand and scissors in the other. He could not take his eyes off her figure until she turned to him. "Hello there, little brother," said the stranger in a soft, velvet voice. "Thank you for saving me," replied Lin, looking away from the figure and shapes. In an instant, the girl was right in front of him, and looking at him from under her forehead, she asked, "Little brother, am I beautiful?" To which Lin was greatly surprised at her initiative. His gaze fell upon her lush form, and dazzled by it, he barely heard her reply that she was gorgeous, after which the girl's face changed beyond recognition. The whites of her eyes grew darker than night, and her pupils became the color of blood, which made her heart sink. Nor were the teeth of the formerly beautiful stranger the same. They had become as sharp as piranhas, and her mouth had opened in a terrifying smile of an ugly clown. "Now, am I still beautiful to you?" "Oh, fuck," said Lin in shock, thinking to himself. "Why is it a monster again? I thought she was a beautiful heroine who came to my rescue, and I almost fell in love with her." Lin pressed his back against the wall and froze, waiting for further developments. The new monster pressed her body against his and licked him with her long tongue, droplets of saliva falling from it. "Come on, little brother, answer me quickly," she said. The monster pressed her breasts against Lin's, making Lin's heart race and his mind go crazy. But Lin, pulling himself together, realized that the most important thing was to stay alive and not to think about how beautiful her figure was and what he would do to her. Lin was aware of the fact that neither option would save him. Saying she was beautiful would cut the stranger's throat, and if she called her ugly, the result would be the same. From such a long silence, the gray-haired beast put her scissors, which had shrunk in size, to his face. The guy was ready to say goodbye to his life for the second time in an hour, when suddenly a system window appeared before his eyes. The host has been detected to be in danger, and the divine choice system has been successfully bound. The world around him stopped, and Lin was left with the blade of scissors in his mouth. Immediately, the next system window appeared. Time limit of 5 seconds. Please make your choice system panel. Choice 1. Run away immediately, but you will be chased by a monster girl. The task is rewarded with a powerful pill, increases your strength tenfold. Choice 2. Get down on your knees and beg for mercy, and grant this girl's every request. The task is rewarded with cleansing pills, S-grade physical talent awakening. Choice 3. If you die under the lips of a beautiful girl, you can die without regret. Don't think, just kiss her already. Idiot. The task is rewarded with a random set of SS class supernatural ability, randomly chosen ability. Lin immediately realized that this is the legendary system, so often described in various stories about the Trapped, and now he has access to it. His years of gaming experience told him to opt for the third option, because then he would get so much profit at the beginning of his journey. As soon as he made his choice, the system notified him that the restrictions had been lifted and invited him to perform the task assigned by his choice. So Lin took the initiative by taking the monster girl by the shoulders and saying, "It's my first kiss, but I'd better give it a try." The stranger stood in front of Lin in complete bewilderment at what was happening, and the next moment the boy kissed her on the lips, which caused her cheeks to play a slight crimson blush of embarrassment, and her appearance became the original appearance. Ugliness turned back into beauty, and insolence into girlish embarrassment. Again, the beautiful girl found herself in the tender arms of the half-naked Lin, who had been standing all this time in just his underpants. I'm not clean anymore," said the beautiful girl embarrassedly. Finding such a pretty sight, the thought flashed through Lin's mind that even though she was a female demon, he should have used his love to change her mind. The next moment, however, the girl jumped out of his embrace and turned around to the young man after walking a few meters away. "My name is Hongi, and I will definitely come back," she said, after which swirls of blue appeared around her, lifting yellowed maple leaves into the air, and the girl herself disappeared into them. Lin stared in wonder at the place where the one who had just conquered him with her beauty was standing and mentally repeated her name, Hongi. He was distracted from this activity by another system window. The host has completed the task. The reward begins. SS class supernatural ability chosen at random. Please shout a lottery shout. Let thunder break all darkness. Lightning began to spark in the sky to form something of a branched column from the sky directed toward him. After reading the system notice, Lin began to resent the fact that he needed to shout out a childish scream right in the middle of the street, but the memory of how he had been able to force himself to kiss the beautiful and scary monster girl helped him overcome his embarrassment. He raised his hand up toward the sky, as if extending it toward the lightning, and then uttered the lottery shout. The sky began to burst with thunder and lightning, and out of nowhere a huge purple demon figure appeared and struck a pillar of light directly at Lin. His body was covered in purple flame, which gradually accumulated in his outstretched upper left arm. At this time, people walking along the streets adjacent to this nook saw what was happening in the sky. Some were pointing at the sky, while others were filming what was happening with their phones. A girl standing a few blocks away looked up into the sky and speculated that someone had awakened special abilities of S-Class or higher, and the only person she could think of who had reached S-Class was the one person in the city of Canlin. The only question that plagued the girl in the tight purple dress with the fiery red hair was the identity of the person who was able to reach this class. Suddenly, there was excitement on her face, and her voice was filled with anxiety. Maybe it's a descendant of that guy. The demon disappeared from the sky, and Lin was kneeling in the same alley. The rain began to fall with renewed vigor, and the boy kept trying to catch his breath after what had happened. So breathing heavily, he read the notice. Congratulations to the host for receiving the SS class ability, Chai Yu. Sitting on the ground, Lin looked at his hand, covered in purple flame, and pondered on his supernatural ability. But his thoughts were interrupted by another notification. The carrier strength is weak. The SS class ability is Chai Yu. It is possible to supplement the carrier strength. You can also gradually unlock the other parts of the ability. Along with his new body, Ling also received new memories. According to them, he knew that the limit in this world was the S-Class, which he awakened. At the same moment, Lin knew that he would become invincible in his new life, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face, after which he clenched his flaming fist with joy. Lin stood in the alley, not taking his eyes off the hand exuding the power of his supernatural ability. And all his thoughts revolved around the same plot, in which he sat in an armchair, clad in expensive clothes. All around him are charming ladies courting him. Here is one beauty massaging him, another holding a tray of fruit, and a third sighing and admiring his grandeur, while he himself is smoking a cigar and drinking a newfangled cocktail. And all his thoughts were interrupted by an annoying system message, telling him that some powerful demon had been detected. When he saw the warning to get out of here, Lin didn't realize what was happening until a blob of red mist appeared out of nowhere, trying to devour him. Realizing he was still weak, Lin sprinted to get away from the monster. The memory of the life of the previous owner of this body began to gradually emerge in the thoughts of the guest from the other world, so without thinking much about the route, the new Lin ran wherever his feet carried him. So soon, after a half-hour run, the new Lin Kai finally reached his house. The boy stood right in front of the 3-story mansion, and after looking at it, he estimated its value at a tidy sum. The excitement of having to be in such a place for the first time made him stop, but realizing that his new loved ones would be inside helped him take the first step toward his new home and life. Upon entering the house, Lin Yu had a picture of the beautiful and expensive interior decoration of the hallway room, in which stood a little and cute girl holding a teddy bear and rubbing her eyes sleepily, as if she was already ready to fall asleep right there. Her long pink hair, braided into 2 ponytails, made her look even more childlike than the teddy bear clutched to her chest. Before Lin could say anything, the girl turned to him. "Brother, what took you so long?" Cr. Lin answered the girl's question by simply saying her name. At that moment, memories of his new family began to surface in his mind. His sister was worried about her brother when she saw the bruises and scratches on him. But Lin immediately calmed her down by saying that he had just slipped on the wet road because of the rain. While he dressed and treated the scratch on his cheek left by Hongyi's scissors, Cr brewed him a ginger root concoction, for which Lin thanked her. It's not bad to have such a caring sister, he thought, sipping from his cup. Sai went to her room with the words, "I'm going to bed," while he was immersed in his thoughts, which were confused by the memories that came back to him. If before he remembered the former Lin being killed behind the school and thrown into the dumpster, now he began to remember that he wasn't his own brother because he was adopted. On top of that, he also has an older sister, Lin Hua. Remembering the death of his foster parents made Lin frown a little, because he really loved them for the kindness they had bestowed upon him. Now he had only two sisters, endowed with incredible intellectual ability and talent that would help them make their way in the world, but not him. At least, that was until tonight. From there, he began to remember even more. This is how the new Lin understood why his older sister was not at home. She had been working in the supernatural abilities department for 3 years now, where she had gotten in because of her talent. Lin himself had been looking after CR since that time, if you could call it that. The old Lin was indifferent to his little sister's feelings and often left her home alone at night, even though she was scared. Taking another sip of ginger root broth, Lin immediately spat it out at the sudden cry coming from behind him. Lin Qiu, come here. Not understanding who could dare break in and frighten him while he was drinking his sister's lovingly brewed concoction, Lin got up from the couch and turned around, wiping the corners of his mouth. Standing in front of him was a girl with long brown hair and blue eyes. Her face showed wild displeasure, but the short skirt that slightly covered the place where her stockings didn't reach and the deep neckline on her chest made Lin concentrate his gaze not on her face, but on other places. The hiding is over, Lin. The girl continued with irritation in her voice. Lin took his eyes off her figure and immediately remembered that the girl's name, Chu Junyao, and that they had been friends since childhood. Why did you come? Lin turned to Chu, trying not to be captured by her appearance again. Lin Kai, how dare you come home after you told me you loved me in front of the whole class over the loudspeaker this morning? You embarrassed me, and I demand an explanation. At that moment, Lin wondered if his murder had something to do with his declaration of love for Chu Junyao. Was he not the only admirer of Chu, and some cretinous lover decided to eliminate a potential rival? However, the desire to stop all this commotion caused him to divert his mind from these thoughts. I was just fooling around, that's all. Please don't tell me you believed that I would never fall for a bitch like you. Lin replied, striking a proud pose. I don't need you for nothing. At these words, Chu Zhenyao was ready to explode right on the spot. She clenched her palms into fists in anger, and with the words, "You die," she jumped towards Lin, kicking her leg back for a punch. However, he threw his body back, so Chu's punch missed, but Lin's nose still started to bleed. And all because he saw Chu Zhenyao's beautiful snow-white panties, which she herself showed him, kicking her leg very high. Realizing what had just happened, the girl abruptly put her foot down and began to cover herself with her hand from behind. You bastard, you saw everything, you bitch, she said, her cheeks flushed with shame. Trying to somehow justify himself and prove his purity and not viciousness, Lin began to answer Chu. I didn't mean to. And besides, you're the one who made such a pure and honest young man look there. You should be ashamed of yourself. Apologize to me. No, you're the shameless one. Hold on, Lin. Having said that, Chu got into a fighting stance and was ready to throw herself at Lin right away. However, CR's little sister intervened and stood in front of her brother. Chu Junyao, don't you dare make a fuss here. Stay away from my brother. Seeing the formidable warrior Xi in front of her, Chu crossed her arms and snorted back at her. I won't stoop to the level of a child. Then she started to walk away, and as she passed Lin, she turned to him. Lin Kai, don't forget tomorrow is an important day, the day of the aptitude test. Only students with C grade or higher abilities will be able to enter the Canlin Academy. I had awakened an A-class ability beforehand, thus securing a place at the academy. All avenues are open to people like me. Lin stood in a bit of a stupor, reasoning over her words, but she didn't stop and continued talking. Well, you'll stay at the bottom, go to a third-rate university, and live like a normal person. Like a normal person? Lin asked angrily. He did not understand how Lin Kai, a man who had awakened an SS-class ability, could be like an ordinary person. It was at this moment that another system window appeared in front of him, asking him to do a task and make his choice. Please make your choice. Choice 1, to remain silent, reward, +2 to dexterity. Choice 2, apologize to Chu Zhenyao and admit that she is right. Reward, +10 to the power. Choice 3, disagree with Chu Zhenyao and swear to awaken the ability at all costs. Reward, +5 to the power. Once again, the choice made Lin ponder. The second option was more appealing to him because of the reward, but he was not ready to agree with Chu Zhenliao. He chose the third option and turned to Chu with an indifferent, cold-blooded expression. Chu Zhenliao, remember, not only will I get the ability, but I will also enter the Chanlin Academy. Lan felt simply handsome at that moment, and the way he responded to her with pathos encouraged him even more. Moreover, he received a notification about the assignment, which made him very happy. However, Chu Zhenliao did not take his words seriously and simply grinned. Anybody can throw words around, but real power is what's important. I've said it all, do what you want. The reaction and words Chu Zhenliao greatly angered Lin, so he shouted to the leaving girl, Chu Zhenliao, you will soon regret it. Relieved, Lin turned to Xi, who was looking at him with eyes burning with delight. Brother, I believe in you, you will definitely awaken the ability, she told him. Soon, when it was very late, both went to their rooms. Lin was lying on his soft, clean bed, and the breeze coming in through the open window cooled him pleasantly. He had long since fallen asleep when a beautiful woman with ashy gray hair lay on the bed beside him. There you have it, she whispered, licking Lin's ear. Fool, stole my first kiss, and now you have to take responsibility for it. Hong Yi pondered, stroking Lin's chin and neck. The sun had long since risen over the horizon when Lin opened his eyes. He immediately realized that he had overslept and had to hurry. So quickly getting ready and eating what C had thoughtfully prepared for him, Lin ran out of the house, finishing his last piece of toast. CR stood on the porch and shouted in his wake, Brother, good luck, to which Lin assured her that he would definitely pass the ability exam. Having awakened the SS class ability, Lin was confident that he shouldn't even have to worry about it. Lin ran down the street as fast as he could, remembering the day before, and soon he was exhausted. As he slowed his pace, he remembered having a strange dream in which he slept with that demoness, and its realism was even frightening. Upon reaching the middle school, Qianlin Lin immediately headed to the hall where the test was to be held. The large hall of the school was packed with people, but at the entrance there was a large crowd of students who wanted to enter. Suddenly, a male voice came over the loudspeaker, inviting those taking the aptitude test to enter the hall in order. At that moment, the crowd rushed inside the hall and Lin, being inside it, swam with the flow. As he made his way through the crowd closer to the podium, Lin took a guy by the shoulder and decided to ask him if he was in the right place. Excuse me, is this where the aptitude test takes place? Don't touch me. The boy answered angrily, turning back to Lin and shaking his hand off his shoulder. But as soon as he saw who was bothering him, he frantically began to repeat Lin's name in its entirety, as if he had seen a dead man. You, what are you doing here? Asked Lin the question, the blond and aggressive young man. Aren't you Yang Xiao? Lin asked, remembering that this guy also liked Chu Zhenliao. That was when the suspicion that Yang Xiao was to blame for his death began to arise in Lin's mind. I didn't think that trash like you would dare show up here, Lin Kai. Yang Xiao replied, after which he was interrupted by one of the exam organizers. The man gave a long, moving speech about the importance of the exam being taken today and asked them to take it seriously. As soon as he had finished his soulful instruction, the man looked at the tablet in his hand and called out to the first examinee. The first examinee is Wang Soang. A boy of short stature in a green t-shirt and a face pale with excitement came out of the crowd. When he reached the counter with the special equipment, the boy put his hand on the blue ball, closing his eyes in anticipation of the result. At that moment, an object loomed up inside the ball, its image displayed on a large screen. The examiner looked at the screen and gave his grade. Ben Sojamin, the F-grade subject, did not pass, then summoned the next student, and so on in turn. Exo Kwang, sharp chopsticks D grade, failed. Hu Shuai, toilet paper, failed. With each new student, a wave of laughter engulfed the hall. Everyone who came to watch the exam today laughed every time someone failed the exam, and their subject was ridiculous. Overnight, however, the crowd fell silent. The examiner summoned Yang Xiao, who climbed to the podium full of confidence in his result. The girls in the bleachers shouted affectionate declarations, and some raised posters with his name on them. The boy put his hand on the balloon, and it began to emit a strong glow. The examiner looked at the screen and said, B class? No, A class. It's an A class beast, the Hellhound. The room began to whisper. The guys were jealously discussing the fact that Yang Xiao had awakened an A-grade ability. At this moment, Lin Kai also found Chu Zhenyao in the stands with a surprised look on her face. Apparently, she didn't expect that this blonde show-off would be able to awaken such a class ability. Here she will be surprised when I pass the exam, thought Lin Kai, who had just been announced. With complete self-confidence, he got up on the stage and walked towards the counter, ready to show himself to the world, but the bleachers greeted him with whistles and scolding. Everyone scoffed at him, and one even promised to eat shit if Lin displayed any ability. Not hearing all the taunts, Lin only saw the attention to his person and started bowing in respect, thinking he was considered handsome. However, the organizer assured him that this was not the case, saying that his fly was also unzipped. Lichi Kuo, burning with embarrassment, quickly buttoned it up, turning away from the stands, and then walked to the counter, reassuring himself that what mattered was not the fly, but what ability he had. With the words, "May your arrogance and prejudice disappear," he placed his hands on the ball, waiting for the result. However, the orb did not show the result that Lin Kai had expected to see. An FF class ability was displayed on the screen, which Lin was instructed to do by the examiner, commenting that it was the most flawed ability and its use was unknown. The hall exploded with laughter. Everyone who was there and saw what was happening laughed out loud. Jokes about Lin Kai poured out from everywhere. Chu Zhenyao only covered her face with her hand, and Yang Xiao grinned. "You didn't disappoint me, Lin Qiu, a flawed ability for a flawed you," he said, walking toward the descent from the podium. Lin Kai fell into despair. He didn't know what to do or why this orb showed such a flawed ability. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his cheek, and a soft female voice told him, "It seems that you need my help," said the monster girl, hugging Lin Kai from behind. "You're that demoness Hom Yi." Fear paralyzed Lin again, and he couldn't move. "I'm here to give you a helping hand." At that moment, Lin Kai's hand was covered in purple flames again, just like the time in the alley. The examiner, who was standing next to him, stepped back a few steps. "Wait, the potential of your ability is growing. This high speed. It keeps growing," the examiner explained into the microphone. "With such potential, with proper training, your ability can reach A class or higher. Amazing." Chu Zhenyao, who was sitting on the bleachers nearby, confirmed the examiner's words and looked at Lin curiously, while Yang Xiao was covered in sweat with irritation and shouted, "Lin Kai is cheating." As soon as the hand went out, the examiner announced his verdict. "While you have an FF class ability, you do have S class potential, which is 1 in a million, so you can consider yourself passed." "Hooray, in the future I will be the strongest," Lun Qiu cried out with joy. 10 minutes later, Lun Qiu was standing in the locker room, where those who had passed the first stage of the exam were waiting for the next one. Seeing him standing by the locker, Yang Xiao walked up to him. "Scum is always scum. Even with your potential, you won't stop being scum. The second stage of the exam is coming up. I'm afraid you don't stand a chance of passing it." Lin Kai only grinned and replied to Yang Xiao in his own caustic manner. "Oh, it smells like envy. Are you really jealous of my strength? Who would envy a garbage like you? If you really have power, then let's show it to me," Yang Xiao said with fury in his voice, grabbing Lin Kai by the scruff of his sweater. At that moment, a system window once again appeared in front of Lin, allowing him to make a choice. "Please make your choice. Choice 1. Give your face an expression of complete calm and ignore Yang Xiao. Reward, +3 to dexterity. Choice 2. Satisfy Yang Xiao's wish. Reward, +3 to the power. Choice 3. Embrace Yang Xiao and solve everything amicably. Reward, +3 to intelligence." Yang Xiao, on the other hand, kept gibbering away. "I'm the young master of the Yang family. Do you have the balls to lay a finger on me? Huh?" Before Yang Xiao knew it, Lin Qiu chose the second option and punched him in the face, causing Xiao snot coming out of his nose and then blood. "Hey look, he asked me to hit him. How could I be such a scum to ignore the request of a member of such a respected Yang family?" said Lin Kai, attracting the attention of others and taunting his opponent. Inwardly, Qiyu was happy about what was happening. He had punished the offender, and in addition, the system alerted him of the completed task and the award he deserved. Zhao was lying on the floor, clenching his fists in rage, and the outline of a part of the hellhound began to emerge from his left hand. "Even my father never hit me. How dare you, scum, raise your hand against me? You bastard," Zhao said, getting ready to rush at Kai. However, a girl who had just entered the waiting room intervened in the conflict. "That's enough. The second stage is about to begin, so please all students follow me. We're going to the location of the second stage." In front of Lin Kai stood a shapely, and he would say semi-nude girl, because her clothes only covered her private parts. On the jacket she wore over her top was a chevron with the Tenshi emblem, a blue dragon surrounded by tongues of blue flame. Lin Kai immediately knew that this blue-haired girl was a person of the Canlin Academy. Soon they were seated on buses and on their way. 3 buses with students who had passed the first stage of the exam drove along the mountain road in the suburb of Quanlin. Inside, a girl who had intervened in the fight between Lin Kai and Yang Xiao was walking along the bus. "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Su Tang. I am a senior student at the Academy of Quanlin, and I am also your examiner for the second stage." The half-naked beauty spoke. "The second stage is extremely important. Those who pass will be able to enter the academy immediately and become official students, so be your best. Is that clear to everyone?" Lin Kai listened to her half-heartedly, especially as she walked past him, for the sight of her legs in shorts barely covering all her intimate parts stirred his mind. Fantasizing about her legs and waist, he felt a stern look on his face, which he found on Su Tan's face as he lifted his head up. However, the driver reported some kind of incident ahead, and Su Tan turned away from Qiyu. A huge swarm of bats flew ahead of the bus and crashed into the buses. The force of their impact caused the bus to tilt sideways, causing the driver to lose control and the bus to fall on its side. Lai Kai kissed the glass with his face and, coming to his senses, began to get out of the bus with the others. Su Tan stood on the upturned bus with a sickle-shaped weapon in her hands formed from her spiritual energy and looked up into the sky, where the bats were circling. "We haven't arrived at the exam site yet. Where did these monsters come from?" she said, and turning to everyone, she continued, "Everyone stick together, kill them all." Lin Kai immediately realized that this was not an exam, because even Su Tang was not aware of what was going on, so he tried to stay close to her. Suddenly, Yang Xiao appeared next to him and began to threaten him. His hands were covered in spiritual energy and formed the paws of a hellhound, after which Xiao grabbed one of the monsters and threw it at Lin Kai. However, he was able to kick the bat away from himself with his foot and not get hurt. Yang Xiao didn't want to calm down, and after ripping the bat that flew at him, he wanted to rush at Qiyu with his bare hands to deal with whoever was bothering the member of the Great Yang clan. But he was prevented by Su Tang, who had dealt with the last monster, and the commotion during which he could kill Lin Kai subsided. Not a couple of minutes later, the ground beneath their feet began to shake, and a moment later, steel chains covered in a red aura began to burst out of the ground and grab everyone around them. One of the chains wrapped around Kai's leg, and then lifted him upside down like so many others. One of the female students panicked and began begging for rescue as she was grabbed by 2 chains and completely paralyzed. Soon a biker dressed in leather pants and a harness over the top of his naked torso pulled up to them. His face could not be seen because of the leather mask on his face, and one of his arms had a chain wrapped around it like the ones that grabbed the guys from the bus. "Oh, I'm a boss of this gym. What nice slaves there are," the biker said as he got up from his bike and looked around at the people he caught. His twisted gaze mentally devoured the victims he was suspending in midair. His attention was drawn to a young student in a tight black tracksuit who kept begging to be saved. The motorcyclist walked up to her and, taking her by the chin, spoke to her. "Hi, girl. Ocean, I'm sorry," he said, licking his lips. "Don't touch my girlfriend." A guy from the side intervened in the conversation. "Well, then I'll touch you," the perverted biker replied with a nasty smile, imagining the pleasure to come. The boy became nervous at the possibility of what was to come, but Su Tang cut the chain with her weapon and rushed toward the pervert with a shout of "Freeze! Hey, untie me." Lin Kai shouted to Su Tang running past. After helping the guy out in an instant, Tang ran on and began to swing her spirit blade to strike the pervert, but he threw her back with the chain he was holding in his hands. After being hit in the face with the chain, Su Tang flew backwards and was about to fall to the pavement, but Lin Ko, who was standing nearby, picked her up. Su Tang's nose bled and she lost consciousness. The hero always appears at the most critical moment. So yes, that's right, the hero is me. Lin Kai said with a satisfied smile on his face as he picked up Su Tang. He put it on the ground, after which a system selection window appeared in front of him. Please make your choice. Choice 1. Escape in the arms of Su Tang. Reward, +2 to dexterity. Choice 2. Get on your knees and ask boss of the gym to let everyone go. Reward, +2 to the power. Choice 3. Defeat this monster and save everyone. Reward, 1 shard of ability improvement, ability enhancement opportunity. I choose the third option, said Ling Qiu, extending his arm out to his side. His hand began to be covered in blue swirls, and he felt his body fill with tremendous strength. Infuriated by what was happening without him, Yang Xiao could not calmly look at the heroism of his enemy, so he shouted to Qiu, "What kind of nonsense are you talking there?" Qiu responded with a cold-blooded face in a way that made Xiao boil over with rage. "I, Ling Qiu, am here to defeat him and save your sorry skin, heir to the Yang family." Lin Kai clenched his palm into a fist and jumped towards the perverted biker, while the others were only perplexed by what was happening, not believing that he had won. The guy was already a meter away from the pervert and was ready to strike with his fist. However, his opponent wasn't going to just let himself get hit like that, and swung his arm, hitting Kai with his chain, causing him to fly away just like Su Tang before him. As he flew backwards, Ling Kai tried to understand the reason for his failure. But no sooner had he fallen to the ground than Hong Yi, visible only to him, arose nearby. She put her arm around his right hand and turned to him. "What a fool you are. You still don't understand anything. You have to concentrate and gather that spiritual energy that you feel and direct it into your right hand. So that's it. I get it." Hong Yi leaned on Ling Kai's chest and began to snuggle. This made him think of kissing the beautiful beauty, and he even took the initiative to close his eyes and reach for her lips. However, things were not as Kai thought. Hong Yi turned into the image of a monster and pushed him. Then, "What are you standing up for? Go fight," she told him. It turned out that he had been unconscious all this time and had just regained consciousness. Su Tang also began to regain consciousness, but he decided not to wait for her and immediately put his new knowledge into practice. He began to concentrate his spiritual energy in his hand, preparing for battle, and despite his comrades' pleas to release them. "Oh, can you get up?" "Great," said the pervy biker, tightening the chain for another hit. "It's time to get serious." Lin Kai's hand was covered in purple flames, forming a hand with long claws. Oh shit, I'm sorry. Die," said the pervert and swung for another punch. "Lin Kai, watch out," shouted Su Tang, who had already regained consciousness and got up from the ground. The chain tore through the air with a wild whistle and headed for Kai's neck, but could not reach it. He intercepted the chain with his hand with the words, "What? Didn't you eat enough porridge?" The biker arrived in shock at what had happened, not anticipating such an outcome. Lin Kai yanked the chain toward him, and the pervert couldn't keep his feet. The guy began to untwist him, which made him dizzy, then released the chain from his hand, and its owner flew at high speed into the rock. When the dust settled, the pervert was seen emerging from the rock, in which he had made a deep hole. There was blood on his forehead from the trauma he had sustained. Su Tang and Yang Xiao stood shocked by what had happened. They didn't understand where Lin Kai got her powers from. "Not bad, slave, managed to beat the blood out of me," said the biker, wiping the blood from his face and getting on his bike. He developed a great speed and tried to hit Lin Kai, who barely dodged another attempt to hit him. Su Tang decided to intervene because she was an examiner after all and therefore responsible for what was going on, but it still hurt her that she was already a student at the academy but was being outrun by some brat with FF grade ability. She interrupted the chain with which the biker tried to hit Lin Kai. The latter had had enough of that moment, while the pervert was distracted from him. He got on the bike behind him and said, "Bro, let's celebrate and suck some dick." The angry biker tried to throw the annoying fellow traveler off, but Su Tang knocked him off the bike and gave him a critical blow with her month. As soon as Su Tang's spiritual weapon hit its target, the biker began to have problems. His spiritual energy ran out, and he began to greedily devour it from the world around him. The amount of spiritual energy exceeded his potential, so his palms became red like blood, and a clot began to form in his chest, accumulating energy around him. "Shit, I ran out of energy. Instead of just taking them out, I guess I'll have to die here with you." Su Tang, realizing that their opponent was carrying out a self-detonation, pushed Lin Qiu away from the explosion, but it was too late. The explosion engulfed them both, and the others, who were immobilized by the chains, were able to free themselves. The former captives began to peer into the smoke and dust, expecting to see both of them alive. And just as the smoke and dust began to settle, one of them saw two silhouettes. Out of the cloud came Lin Qiu, who was supporting Su Tang. Everyone around them began to rejoice with joy that they had managed to survive. Some even forgot Lin Kai's status and began to openly thank and admire him. Lin Kai himself looked at Su Tang as he walked the rest of the guys. She was holding onto her chest and breathing heavily. He decided that the blow had gone straight to her chest and decided to offer his help. "Can I get a massage?" pointing to her chest. She only blushed with anger and looked at him with a killer look, then replied, "Fuck you." As they approached the guys, all the girls surrounded him and began to question where he got his strength, while Yang Xiao stood to the side, rubbing the places where, until recently, the chains of the insane pervert biker had been. Anger and hatred towards Lin Kai began to consume him, because the ability exam amongst this trash should have been his finest hour, not this trash who was now basking in the glory and feminine love. There was no way he could understand where this Lin Qiu had got such power that he could fight on a par with Su Tang, who was skilled in using her supernatural ability and spiritual energy. Lin Kai, on the other hand, was enjoying the attention of the girls surrounding him, something he had been dreaming of since he got his SS class ability. As he looked at them, he had already figured out who and what he could do for him in his fantasies. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a system notification that informed him that he had successfully completed the task and received 1 shard of ability improvement. Thinking that he would now be able to improve his ability from FF class to a higher class made him happy, which made Lin Kai's mouth spread out in a wide smile. However, he understood that modesty was the highest virtue, and if he was petty, he would become a handsome bastard in the future. At that moment, the guys surrounding Lin Kai were distracted by some sound in the sky and turned around to see a large balloon flying towards them. As it approached them, the guys realized that it was a video surveillance module that was used at Canlin Academy. As it flew closer to the guys, the module froze, and from its speakers, the exam organizers addressed them. Announcement: the second stage is over. Hearing this address, the guys, without taking their eyes off the module that flew up to them, began to whisper among themselves, discussing what was happening. What? The second stage? What's going on here? Was this attack planned? However, ignoring the whispering of the guys, the module hovered in the same place and continued to broadcast the examiner's speech. The second stage was aimed at the practical application of your skills, with cameras recording everything that happened and who behaved in that situation. The valiant students officially became students of the Canlin Academy. You bastards. Why didn't anyone warn me? I'm an examiner after all. Su Tang shouted, who had been badly hurt in the fight with the pervert on the bike. Her palm clenched into a fist, and she wanted very much to take out her displeasure on the module that turned to her. The Academy did so in order to form a realistic environment. Further, you would be explained everything. Answered her through the module, after which he turned to the students and directed his gaze to Lin Kai. We should also note that the student with the highest score for this stage of the exam is Lin Kai. Hearing this, Lin Kai stood up to pose in front of the girls, who now kept their eyes on him, commenting on their assessment by saying that there was nothing special about it. After all, It was just as it should be. Overjoyed that they were alive and able to pass the second stage of the exam, the crowd picked up Lin Kai and began to toss him into the sky with exclamatory slogans. Only Su Tang and Yang Xiao stood aside and watched what was happening, thinking about it in different ways. Su Tang realized that the boy being tossed in the sky was hiding his great potential, and was afraid that if he entered the academy, he would be able to thoroughly shock her. Yang Xiao, on the other hand, stood there watching this, being completely overwhelmed with anger and ready to pounce on Lin Kai right here and now. However, he was aware of how this could turn out, despite the fact that he was a scum of society, despised and persecuted by him. Poet Xiao exhaled deeply, thereby calming himself, and began to bring himself back to his normal appearance. A short time later, Lin Kai returned home, where his little sister was waiting for him. As soon as he crossed the threshold of the house and told CR that he was back, she jumped out into the hallway in her casual outfit, something like a maid's outfit, and asked her little brother about the results. With a smile on his face from such a warm and joyful encounter, Kai patted Sire on the head and answered her. "You have such a cool brother, so I couldn't help but pass the exam. What's more, I have the ability, and I'm already enrolled in the Academy of Steinlin." Wow, how cool is that? CR was childishly happy, and she was filled with pride in her brother. However, as Kiyu danced to the stairs to the second floor, she realized that now her brother would soon leave the house to go to study at the Academy of Quanlin, and now she would be all alone at home, because her older sister was almost all the time at work, and only Kiyu kept her company. Especially since something had changed about him, and the new brother was different to her, which made her even more reluctant for him to leave. "Brother, you must be tired. Get a good rest. Meanwhile, I'll make dinner. Kai, don't forget to share the good news with your big sister." "Yeah, thanks, CR." Climbing the stairs, Kai replied. He went into his room and took the phone from the nightstand, which he had left at home when he was hurriedly getting ready for the exam. It was already the beginning of 11 o'clock in the evening when Kai got ready to call his older sister. He dialed her phone number, and the dial tone came out of the speaker. Opening the doors to the balcony, he stepped out into the fresh air and waited for his sister to answer. The ringing stopped and a woman's voice was heard. "Hello." "Yes, sister. I already passed the exam." It was hard for him to talk on the phone to someone who was his older sister, not seeing him once, but remembering the former Lin Kai from his memories. Lin Hua was at this time standing on the boom of a construction crane, wearing the tight leather suit that she usually wore on assignments, which did not restrict her movements. Her hair, purple in color and reaching down to her thighs, was slightly windswept, and she had a two-handed sword hanging behind her back. As she picked up the phone and heard her younger brother's voice, Hua was glad, for she hadn't seen him or CR in a long time. "Great. If Dad were alive, he'd certainly be glad to hear that. I hope you don't stop there." Her voice sounded worried, but at the same time, she was genuinely happy for her brother. "I've got things to do, so let's talk more later." After these words, Sister Hua ended the call and Kiyu heard only short beeps. Sister Ling Hua is so busy. I can't even imagine when we can see each other." Kai thought aloud, falling on the bed like a sack. His body was aching from fatigue and the blow he had received from the pervert biker today. So when he fell on the bed, it was as if his body was sinking into the mattress, and he did not want to move even once more. However, from the feeling of dizziness and someone touching him, Kai opened his eyes and saw before him the one who had conquered his heart and scared him to death on his first day in this world. She leaned her arms on his torso and began to approach his face. "So it's you. Why do I feel dizzy every time you come over?" Lin Kai asked the Lady of the Heart as he wiped his blood dripping from the sight of Hong Yi's shiny forms. "Do you want me?" she asked him, barely touching his lips. "Well, I'm a man in the prime of my life. You should not behave so provocatively, or I will not be able to restrain myself." Kai replied vulgarly. "Lin Kai, I need you. I can teach you how to increase your strength, but you must promise me something," said Hong Yi, sitting down in front of him and covering the area between her legs with her dress with the gaze of an innocent maiden. "W, what is it?" Kai asked, unable to take her gaze away from the barely covered intimate parts of the beauty. In an instant, Hong Yi assumed the most arousing pose possible, remaining seated as well, and replied, "Marry me." After these words, Ling Kai fell into some unknown world where there was nothing around him. Out of nowhere, Hong Yi appeared in front of him, flying towards him, leaving behind him red flames. "Marry?" Kai asked her again. "Yes, you will sign a spiritual contract with me, and we will be married," she answered him, touching his chest lightly. "I'm not like that. I can't just marry someone like that. We should at least go for a walk together first." Tai was excited by what was happening and didn't know what else he could say to her proposal, and only then formalize our relationship. But I'm already exhausted, Hong Yi said, huddling as close to him as possible, which made Lin Kai feel every bulge and curve of her beautiful and exciting fantasy body. In the chest area, tongues of flame sprang up between them, circling in a circle. Abruptly, they were pushed away from each other, and flames erupted from both of their chests, connecting the two. A low, bass voice began to sound in both of their heads that said, "Bloody contract." The flames then burst into the chests of both of them. Ling Qiu howled with the pain experienced in that moment. The flames drilled a hole in his chest, into which Hong Yi's blood began to flow. The same thing was happening to the gray-haired beauty. When the process was over, the hole in his chest disappeared, leaving no trace on his chest or on his clothes, and the voice rang in his head again, "Blood is our witness." The marriage is consummated, whereupon both passed out and continued to float in weightlessness, with Hong Yi snuggling into Ling Qiu's arms around her lover. Now bound to Hong Yi by blood, Ling Qiu could see the same memories as she did, and while he was unconscious, Hong Yi recalled her life, explaining certain things to her lover. However, Lin Kai was not destined to see all the memories, because Sire woke him up. He only had time to learn that demons and gods descended into this world 1,000 years ago. That for 1,000 years, the heroes had suffered defeats in battles with them, and it was so until she, Hong Yi, was reborn. CR excused herself by waking her brother up for breakfast, but he didn't feel like getting up. But sleep had already been chased away, and there was nothing else for him to do. Thinking back to the previous night, Ling Kai couldn't forget that he was now a married man. Qiu was surprised that his newly married wife wasn't around and began to lament the fact that they were supposed to have their first wedding night that night. But that was not what was on his mind entirely. He longed to find out what had happened to her in the past and decided for himself to find out the next time, no matter what. He also had to go to the Canlin Academy today, which meant that he would have to say goodbye to his little sister Sire. So after finishing his breakfast and packing his suitcase, he, along with Sire, headed to the place where the bus to the academy was supposed to pick him up. When the bus arrived, CR grabbed her brother's hand and cried with tears in her eyes, "I don't want my brother to leave." "Silly, my brother's not going away forever. I'll come visit you during the vacations, okay?" Brother. Kai knew that he was becoming more and more attached to his little sister, but unfortunately, he had never been to the academy and could not take her with him. He squatted down and stroked Sire's head and said, "CR, don't worry, your brother will come back for sure." To which the girl nodded her head and said quietly, "Ha ha." After rubbing her little sister's head some more, Q turned his attention to the bus driver, who was already shouting at him to hurry up, because he couldn't wait any longer. Kai then jumped on the bus, and as it moved and drove off, he leaned out the window with a handkerchief. He waved it for Sire, saying goodbye to her. "Bye-bye. Take care of yourself." "Okay, brother, see you soon." CR replied, waving her hand back. As the bus disappeared around the corner, CR smiled wickedly, as if she were devising an ingenious plan to take over the world. But that was not the case. At that moment, she decided to herself that she could not wait for her brother to return, but had to go after him herself. After a few hours of not the most comfortable ride, Lin Kai arrived at the Canlin Academy. When he got off the bus, the main entrance to the academy appeared before him. He was stunned by the sight of the academy and froze in anticipation of his life there. But there was someone else here that caught his eye. They were the beauties who strutted back and forth. Some of them came with him, which meant they would be studying together. The two girls recognized Ling Kai because they had been together with him in the second stage of the exam, so they started whispering and giggling embarrassedly when he paid attention to them. However, Ling Kai needed to report his arrival to the academy first, for which he went in search of the teacher's lounge. In the teacher's lounge, however, there was a real battle for students between the teachers. A woman with a big bust and red hair, dressed in a dress that fit every curve of her body and wore a long cloak over it, demanded that the best freshman of the year be hers. What the hell was that about? Is it because of the size of your breasts? The other professors argued indignantly, wanting to get the best student too. That's right, aren't they too big? You think if you have big breasts, you can do anything.
At that moment the teacher, who was smoking, demanding the best student, changed her face abruptly and answered her colleagues with a sneer in her voice, "Sorry, who's got the tits? That's who's right." At that moment, behind their backs, one of the teachers called the name of Lin Chie, who confirmed his identity and wanted to know what he could be useful with the most pathetic expression on his face and in the same pathetic posture. Just hearing this name, all the other teachers rushed to him and offered to become their apprentice, luring him with various things. One offered him a high-quality medicine, and immediately another made him look like a liar and offered him attention from the girls. And so the other teachers acted. They denounced their colleagues for lying and immediately offered their terms until they were denounced by another. Watching all this from the sidelines, a teacher with a lush bust watched as her future student was almost torn apart on the spot by her colleagues. Lin Chie himself, who had barely made it out of the crush, told them, "Don't fight. Let's settle this with words. Don't fisting ass." As Lin Chie made his way out of the midst of these teachers who continued to argue with each other, a woman with long red hair came up to him and called his name, drawing his attention to herself. "I'm Tang Lin's teacher, would you like to come to my place?" The first thing Ling Chie noticed were her lush forms, which captured all his thoughts, yes, so that it was perfectly visible that he was staring at them only, accompanying their every movement. At this point the other teachers saw what was going on and, outraged that a potential student might be taken from them, roared with anger and tried to pull Tang Ling away from him, but she wouldn't listen to them. She saw Chi Yue staring at her breasts and decided to take advantage of it. Undoing a couple of buttons and musing her hair slightly, Tang Ling arched and squared her shoulders slightly, giving herself the look of an innocent and weak girl, stirring the thoughts of the boys standing nearby. "I will give you a better dormitory, and in the future also a special position, just acknowledge me as your teacher." In a gentle and slightly faint voice she said, addressing Ling Chie, which was also seen and heard by the two teachers standing behind him. This sight made all three of them have blood gushing out of their noses. Admitting their utter defeat to Tang Ling, the other teachers retired to look for other disciples, regretting their loss. Ling Chie immediately performed the necessary ritual, lighting 3 incense sticks and bowing his head to Tang Ling addressed her, "Master, accept me as your apprentice." The delighted Tang Ling just walked up to him and kissed him on the forehead, which made Ling Chie dizzy. "After that, don't forget to practice well and don't let me down," Tang Ling said fondly, but the next minute the aura around her changed, and all her face showed was a desire to kill. "And if you let me down, I'll tear your asshole." "Pa. Got it," Chie answered her fearfully. Immediately, the new teacher Lin Chie became the same old beauty with a gentle and kind smile. Lin Chie reached his dormitory and was surprised at what he saw. He had expected that a few of his teacher's students each lived in these houses, but this was not the case. In these 2-story cottage-type houses, each student lived separately from the others, which made Chi Yue happy, and he immediately began to imagine having fun on the lawn in the yard with the hotties, but his fantasies were interrupted by the carcass of a large guy who appeared from the window of the neighboring house. "Hey! You're the new guy Lin Chie, aren't you?" He turned, drawing Chie's attention. "Call me Xiang Chang, I am also a student of Tang Ling and I am your senior. According to the teacher's order, I will advise you." A couple of minutes later, after talking from the window, Lin Chie's interlocutor went down to the first floor of his lodge and walked outside to him. Chi Yue got up from his lounger and walked over to his elder. Shaking hands over the fence, they struck up a conversation. "Hello again, senior apprentice Xiang Chang, please take care of me." Lin Chie started the conversation. Don't be so formal, just call me Fatty." Chang replied with a smile. A heart-to-heart conversation ensued between the two, during which Chi Yue decided that Fatty was quite cheerful and tried to learn as much as he could from him about Qinling Academy. "Listen, what do you think of Tang Lin's teacher, much ferocious?" "Yeah, a weapon of mass destruction," Fatty replied, put his arm around Lin Chie's neck, and then added in a whisper. You definitely agreed to become her disciple after her seductions, didn't you? She probably also promised you a special position in the future, didn't she? Yeah, isn't that right?
And the moment Kyu thought about everything that was going on, the ferret decided that he had dumbed down his question and with a cry of "die," jumped toward Lin Kyu, transforming right into a large and pumped-up ferret with sharp claws and claws ready to tear anyone in its path. When he was within a meter of him, Hong Yi's scissors flew into the air, which stopped him. And this rat dared to attack my husband. Hun Yi said as she entered the room, "Motherfucker." "Okay, ferret, that was mean." Kai commented on the situation. Approaching the ferret, Hong Yi transformed her scissors into a large two-handed sword and took it in her hands, ready to deliver a deadly blow. "My darling, stop." "I can't believe I did that," Lin Qiu said. "Honey, what is it?" Hong Yi asked with embarrassment, turning her head to her husband, and in her mind, she was lurking at being called her favorite. "Since he came here, we should have some fun. Turn him into something," said Lin Kai, and he already had ideas in his head of what, so much so that drool started to flow from his mouth. For example, into food. 10 minutes later, the ferret was sitting on the couch tied up shibari style and crying, waiting for its time, trying to convince me in every way that ferrets were not tasty, while the husband and wife speculated on what could be done with it. Unable to withstand such pressure, the ferret became furious and shouted, "Two demons, you two demons, even a cute little ferret is ready to eat. If you don't want to become food, then tell me why you attacked me and who sent you." Ling Kai said to the ferret, sitting right above him with a terrifyingly scary face, as if he was ready to swallow him alive and not gulp. "I'm not telling you anything. Ferrets don't give up. Beloved, build a fire. Tonight's dinner is ferret on coals." Lin Kai said, turning to Hong Yi, who was in charge of the kitchen in a white apron, worn over her usual red dress. The infuriated hamster agreed to tell everything and confessed that he had been sent by Yang Guang. Lin Kai knew that he was the grandfather of that Yang Shao and was a part-time elder at the Academy of Quanlin. When he heard this news, he decided that trying to kill him was their family hobby, or in a row. At that moment, a choice appeared before him. "Please make your choice." Choice 1, release the ferret. Reward, bone marrow cleansing pill, awakens an S-grade physical talent. Choice 2, kill the ferret. Reward, 6 ability upgrade shards, opportunity to enhance an ability. Choice 3, become a chef and prepare a gourmet ferret dish. Reward, frying pan of the highest class, forged from cold steel.